Starscream here, and I am the Lord and Master of the Geekcast Radio Network. Don't tell Megatron.
Oh my gosh, this is so great!
Welcome to The Pull Bags, Back Issue Classics. Join us as we talk about comics from yesteryear, from DC, Marvel, and more. So open your ears to hear our discussion of the older continuities, as the Back Issue Classics are also what's in The Pull Bag.
Hello and welcome to The Pull Bag. This is yet again another Back Issue Classics, and we are continuing on in the world of Transformers with IDW Publishing's Transformers Robots in Disguise Volume 5. I am your host, TFG1 Mike. Joining me once again is LadyWreck. Hello.
Hello! I fought floods to be here.
I was going to say, the rain defeated the Wrecklet.
Sort of. The Wreckette. No.
Yeah.
We've had a little bit of rain here in Phoenix, which is very unusual, but it's like rainy season. So it rained. This is usually how it is. It rains in different spurts all over different parts of the city, right? So this morning we got a downpour, like at 6:30 in the morning. So it rained consistently for a good 30 minutes, and it stayed pretty cloudy until about mid-afternoon. It's actually sunny out right now, but then I had a doctor's appointment on another section of the city, and it came down so hard when I left the appointment. I got soaked just walking two or 3 yards to get to my car.
The only thing I can think of
there were floods.
is
I had to wait for 30 minutes before I could leave, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to get back in time.
God. The only thing I can think of is there was hard rain, there was stinging rain, there was slow rain. I don't think it was Forrest Gump when he's over in Vietnam.
It was drenching rain. Let's just call it like that.
Yes. Alright, so this is Robots in Disguise Volume 5. This collects issues 17 through 22.
Mm-hmm.
These are all preludes to Dark Cybertron.
Prelude.
Yeah. Actually, when Nicole Hailstorm and I did the More Than Meets the Eye volumes 4 and 5 leading up to Dark Cybertron, we actually stopped at 21 because the only prelude there is the Rewind issue, issue 22. So we're going to do that when we actually do Dark Cybertron.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't feel like it really deserved to be in the Remain in Light episode.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It was one of those things.
It was one of those. It's kind of an off-color one because it ends on such a different episode or issue than what you expect. But the good thing is that, and this is something that I, reading through Volume 5 again, just kind of pulling it all together, going back and thinking back what it was like. And it's a very odd collection because you don't get the same consistency in Volume 5 as you did in Volume 4, where it just seemed like it was one arcing thing. I mean, it quite literally is, in every sense of the word, prelude of Dark Cybertron. It's taking different threads and pulling them all together. And it kind of does make sense once you get to the end, but throughout the issues, there doesn't seem to be like any cohesiveness to them. The good thing about it is that while this was running ongoing, we had More Than Meets the Eye, which was hitting off this really great arc of Remain in Light. So if you were following the Robots in Disguise issues and going, scratching your head, going, I don't get it, at least you were getting a really good arc in More Than Meets the Eye at the time. And the other thing is that it almost felt a little overkill because I think for the year preluding Dark Cybertron, we had the spotlights before this, right? And the spotlights seemed to be building up towards something as well because they had this ongoing theme with Metro Titan in them. I mean, not all of them did, but quite a few of them did. So it kind of felt like, we're getting more stuff building up to this Dark Cybertron thing. We were already kind of feeling a little, I think, overloaded with something that was coming. We're waiting for this buildup of we're getting to something big, and then we got the name Dark Cybertron. Like, okay, that's what it must be, and that's why we've been getting all of the Titans. And so, it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it really, really was. So, like last time with More Than Meets the Eye, Volume 4 and 5, Volume 4 of Robots in Disguise I was doing it via Comixology. Same thing with Volume 4 for More Than Meets the Eye. This time around I actually have the singles still for RID, so I'm going to be looking through the actual issues without having to go panel by panel on Comixology.
Gotcha.
Amy has so graciously put together synopsis and bullet point notes for these.
Because we don't want to spend 3.5 hours doing this one like we did last time. So
okay. We start with issue 17. The one that I got was cover B with Shockwave holding Dreadwing's head and the Crystal City inside Shockwave's chest. The other covers were, cover A was just a regular Shockwave shot, and the retail incentive was, who is that? That is Dreadwing, I think, isn't it?
Yes.
On the retail incentive?
Yes, the one that was by Phil Jimenez.
Yep.
Yep.
So
you got the one that was by, what, Casey Collar?
Yeah, Casey. I usually love Livio's stuff.
Yeah.
I love his art.
Yeah.
I love the art. It like the interior art. I usually like it, but I don't know. Casey's cover just spoke a little bit more to me. Like, it was a lot cool. Like, the difference between the two for me is Livio's is more of a matte finish, and Casey's is more of a glossy finish as far as how Shockwave looks on each of them.
Gotcha.
And I just enjoy Casey's more.
I think I went with the Livio cover on that one, which is kind of funny because I think at the time, and I didn't think about this until we actually started talking about covers. I went, oh, I did not check this. But I think if I remember correctly, there was another Shockwave cover that he did the year before that. But there's something about this one just really popped off the page for me. So I think I actually got it as a poster at one of the conventions as well. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, it's really just something about it that really just jumped at me. It's not that I didn't like the Casey one, because Casey is just like most of the time does everything in the right direction. I'm like, oh, I love it. But
I've wanted us to get through this to at least to have us, and by meaning us, the pull bag, because you're not going to be on the Dark Cybertron episode, but I wanted to get through at least to Dark Cybertron before I brought in or tried to get any more interviews.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because I need to get through this. I need to be able to have the coverage so people can listen to the coverage first before. Like, I cannot wait to shoot IDW a request to interview Casey or Livio or Alex or anybody, because I really do dig the art. I think the only time I have not dug the art is back in volume 2 or 3 of one of them. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. There was one where they did a flashback and they did it in the style of the old Marvel stuff, and I'm just not. That's just not my cup of tea.
I think that might have been done by Guido.
It might have been, and no offense to him, he does amazing art. It's not a style I like.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, the reason why I think I liked it is just because I've since started, podcasting with the Underbase. I've, kind of exposed myself to things that I like, art that I wasn't necessarily a fan of, but I've learned to appreciate it since then, especially when Guido does it. And I don't know anybody that's done an interview with Guido, so if you're able to get one with Guido, I'd be like, my hat is off to you.
I am surprised you haven't by now.
You've done the thing that I have not been able to do. I've tried to contact him. It's difficult to get in touch with him. He's a busy guy, so, yeah.
All right, so issue 17, we have, this is the Shockwave history lesson.
Yeah. That's what it seemed like to me, because, we get the before and after of, a shadow played in Imperator Shockwave. How he pretty much became the Decepticon that we have today, and how he seeded the ores that come into play in Dark Cybertron. It's like, it's the opening issue. If you skip this whole volume, absolutely read 17. Because it kind of puts into play, it sets the tone of him as a character. I mean, I kind of look at it as like, okay, we had shadow play, right? where we learned all this stuff about Shockwave that James had written over in More Than Meets the Eye. I think it was More Than Meets the Eye 9, 10, and 11, if memory serves correctly. Yep. And it completely changed the character for me. I looked at him as a different character. So coming back to this was almost kind of like coming back to that, to kind of recall, hey, remember that Shadowplay thing that James wrote? This is where it's going to actually have something to play into Robots in Disguise, because Shockwave is over with John, not James. And something that James wrote has greatly affected this character over in the Robots in Disguise arc. So it was just really, really cool to come back to this and see it. So
no, I think I mentioned this before with Ender at some point when we did the original More Than Meets the Eye volumes, where they did talk about Shockwave and everything else. But what do you think of Livio and the team using the War/Fall for Cybertron design for Shockwave in the comics?
Oh, I thought it was fine. It made sense. I mean, it's been used already in the Robots in Disguise, the other issues and stuff like that. So I tend to kind of like that. I like it. But when I see him, for some reason, I do not hear the voice.
Corey Burt. Yeah.
No, I don't hear Corey Burton, and I don't hear the War for Cybertron voice that they gave him, or the Fall for Cybertron voice that they gave him, which was Steve Bloom. I hear the one that's from Transformers Prime. For some reason, David Sobolov just really sounds like Soundwave in these issues. Especially, I meant Shockwave. As I was reading through it the last 24 hours, I heard that voice. I really heard that voice a lot. So,
if I love David Sobolov, he's an amazing voice actor. If he changed that just a little bit, if you think about it, Shockwave is really depth charge from Beast Wars, which is really, really cool. I love the opening page. I actually, because the way I did this was I read it on Comixology, but as we go through it, as we go through the issues and talk about the bullet points and the events that happen, I'm looking at the single issues, but on the first page, the bottom right panel where he says there's always more than meets the eye, that shows up as a single panel on the guided view on Comixology. I'm like, yep, screen cap.
Yep.
That's a Facebook image, It's just too cool. I mean, Livio and who's doing the colors on this?
Livio does his own colors, actually.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. I absolutely love it. Did they? I'm going to ask this now, and I know I'm going to be answering my own question a little bit later. Did they use the same story title twice? Because Shockwaves, I think, is used again when we get to the Soundwave issue, or the...
That's a good point to ask. Let me flip through that real quick.
Because I'm thinking they did. I mean, it's not that big of a deal.
I think this one was Shockwaves. I think the other one was Soundwaves. So it's just a play on...
Yeah.
I think it's just a play... I'm just flipping through it real quick. Come on.
Because I could have sworn there was one where I saw it was the same thing. I think
let's see. Actually, it was Shock Point.
Shock Point, yep. And then Soundwaves was issue 21. Yeah, it was 22, I should say.
Yeah, let me look at them. Getting to the end of that one. Yep, you're right. This one was Shockwaves, and
then the other one was
22 was Shockwaves. So, or Soundwaves.
Soundwaves, yeah.
One about Shockwaves is Shockwaves. The one about Soundwave is Soundwaves.
Is Soundwave, yeah.
But yeah.
No, I mean, so we get Shockwave and Dreadwing, and he basically kills him, and he comes back to life.
Yep. And the reason why he comes back to life is because, is because he has seeded this ore in the Crystal City, and he did this a long, long time ago, which was incredibly fascinating to me because it kind of gave this dimension to this character that I thought he was already, and this is a question I wanted to ask you, is if Shockwave was always going to turn out the way that he was it always going to happen to him? Because he had already been thinking about this long in his past, way before Shadowplay and Imperator, way before he even knew Optimus or then Orion Pax.
Just call him Optimus. That is one thing I'm gonna like. Don't get me wrong. I love John as a writer, and I love that they homage his old name. But unless Livio and the rest of the team and whoever else does other issues, unless they were actually going to change him back bodies to the old Orion Pax body or a very different body than what Optimus Prime looks like, he's friggin' Optimus Prime.
I know. And it becomes an ongoing joke pretty much through this whole vault.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
Optimus Prime. I mean, we mean Orion Pax. Like, please call me by Orion Pax. You're like, shut up. Just get over yourself already. Call yourself right, you know.
Yeah.
OP. We'll call you OP. You can't make up your mind what you want to be called.
So yeah. I mean, it's you're right. He did. John did add a lot of depth, and for the fact that Shockwave was thinking about this long before anything, like, this is truly the definition of the long con.
Yeah.
I mean, it really, really is, because if he's planning on this, they always say, 4 million years ago or 8 million years ago, there was a war, and we had before the war and after the war. Well, if he was thinking about this when he was a senator or before he even became a senator, then... And does that guy plan out so far ahead of time than I mean, I'm a guy that plans out stuff. Right now, I have the pullback planned through probably over episode 200. I don't actually have it planned, but I have it mapped to where I can see what I want to cover when I want to cover it. But the first year, I had the first 100 episodes planned. They changed as it went along, and they've evolved. But so I'm a guy that does plan for the future and does make plans to go 2, 3, 4, 5 years beyond what I'm currently doing. But at the same time, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to any of that. But Shockwave, holy crap! I mean...
Okay, so now I know what character you are then. You call me Whirl, you call Nicole,
nice.
Cyclonus. You're Shockwave.
Yeah, but I can't be Shockwave, though, because I usually go by emotion, and he goes by logic.
So you're the pre-Shockwave.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten to the point where you've been Shadowplayed or Imperator.
No.
But you hang around with World long enough and something like that's going to happen,
Yeah. I'm sure.
Oh, good times. So yeah, I was very impressed. I guess I didn't know what I was getting when I got into this, and I kind of felt like the character was even deepened a little bit more, because I felt like, I mean, going through this, he does say something about, like, Diatlas, like, says something to him that kind of causes him to pause. So I think there was something that did play a little bit role in there, especially when they, after the Shadowplay and the Imperator, because he didn't have emotion kind of holding him back. I think he took things a lot further than he may have as a character. But it was really interesting to me to see how the wheels were already turning way back when. And it just took it to the nth degree when certain things came into play for him. The other thing that I kind of thought was really cool is that he saw what Jihaxis had done, and he built on that. And so if anybody ever says, like, Jihaxis was a better scientist, actually, I mean, I think in this it kind of illustrates just a little bit better that he quite literally was supposed to surpass Jihaxis. And he actually does. I mean, the fact that he even says that the reason why he did the whole seeding thing is because he foresaw that they were going to end up having an energon crisis down the line because of where they had built things and how they had gone. Which, again, I mean, just kind of ties into everything that's been going on. I mean, it just kind of hit me in the back of the head. I went, oh, geez, John has been doing this for a while, because the energon crisis has been around, and it was so subtle that it kind of just didn't hit me until I read this and I went, oh my gosh, this is stuff that's playing into stuff that's going on right now, Windblade and stuff that's going to go into the future. It's just like, nice. I didn't even see that one coming. So
John is not only the captain of continuity, he is the Shockwave of the IDW universe.
Brilliant.
I will say, I do want to get this out of the way really quickly here. Between Volume 4 and Volume 5, I don't know. I feel like there's a huge disconnect. Because the end of Volume 4, we end on the Starscream stuff, right?
Yeah.
And that doesn't come into... Well, it comes into play a little bit in issue 18, but it just... It's... I don't know. It's kind of like... it's kind of like John ended a season of a TV show at issue 16, and then issue 17 starts a whole new thing. It's not. I mean, it all does connect and tie in, but... I don't know. I don't dislike issue 17 at all. I absolutely love it because I am a huge fan of Shockwave, and let's face it, Shockwave in G1, while Corey Burton was awesome as the voice, he didn't exactly have a whole lot of room to grow as a character in G1 because that's not how cartoons were written back then.
Yeah. I think that the disconnect is coming from the fact that I think that for 5 issues of the last volume, it was they were so connected, they were moving towards something. Whereas this one, this issue, specific at the very beginning, we find out that actually this is when Shockwave disappeared in what was going on with the last arc, where Megatron contacts to see if Shockwave's there, and he's not, and Soundwave says that he's gone. We don't know where he went to. This is where he went to. At that point, he skipped out. So that's the tie, at least between what happened the last 5 issues and this one. Yeah. Is that, remember that part? That one panel where Shockwave disappeared when he was called upon? That's where he went. This is where he went, and this is what happened. I can't remember. Did you already say that he shoots Dreadwing?
Dreadwing, yeah. He kills him and he comes back to life.
Yeah, scary stuff, man.
I'm glad that it's not someone who... don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are a lot of Dreadwing fangirls out there or something. I don't know, but it's like, I'm glad he's with a character that I don't necessarily care about either way, as far as like him or dislike him. I think usually when Shockwave, because Shockwave is the logic bot, and usually when he plans all this out and after he's done his plotting, he gets to the point where it's time for action, and that's usually where, pun intended here, it usually shocks me when he does stuff, because you don't see that. Even though I was reading along and I was fine, and I got the story and everything else, I didn't see that I didn't really realize that he was going to do that to Dreadwing. So that, usually when Shockwave acts, that's when everybody needs to be scared.
Yeah, because stuff was going to get real.
well, you always hear about, the strong silent type ones. You got to, it's the quiet ones you got to watch out for. Well, yeah, that is true, and Shockwave does do a lot of inner monologuing a lot of the times and a lot of inner plotting. But when he acts, you better watch the hell out. Yeah,
because that means bad things are going to happen.
Yeah,
especially for a character like him who plays the long game. He just, a few more points that I got out of this. I thought it was pretty interesting because we kind of harken back to the Chaos Theory issues 22 and 23, because before he becomes the Shadowplate and Emperata Shockwave in here, he's the emotional senator that basically stands against the rest of the Senate, and that, of course, ends up getting him into trouble. But he's also the guy that had Orion Pax, the chest thing, with make him more compatible with the Matrix after he got beat up in issue 22, I believe, or was it 23? I think is the one. And that, of course, caused this friendship thing. It's also harkening back to the More Than Meets the Eye issues as well. But it was just really interesting to see that. I wasn't quite sure at the time. I think maybe it was revealed that he was the guy that changed him. But I just thought it was really interesting to see that he didn't like the Senate, and now he's basically actively trying to find a way to replace them.
Yep.
But to flip that around is that once they had Shadowplayed and Imperated him, he actually lied because he was trying to manipulate the Senate and willing to allow certain things to happen, like even the Energon crisis to happen, just so that he could get them in a position where he could take them out. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, whew, he went from being the guy that probably wouldn't have done that to the guy that did, because, hey, logic dictated that it must happen so that he could get his own experiments to work. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And where does Optimus's trailer go?
Who knows? I think that's the one of the bafflements of the whole,
Yeah, Transformers universe.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the only reason why I ask is because I'm looking at the page here where Pax comes up to him. Where they have the little meeting that they have. And I just noticed that while Orion Pax is in alt mode, he does have a trailer, and then boom, disappears.
Which page is that?
That's page 17. It's the top
you're
panel.
Right. You know what? I think that one he's supposed to be like in his legs or something. I don't know. That's a good question. If I remember the alt mode for, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it does. No, it doesn't matter. I just had to make the joke.
It does make it look like he's got the long trailer, even though it's not like the traditional trailer that But still, yeah. There's some big legs.
Yeah. So. What's interesting is that you have a note in here that Megatron gives him his hands back.
Yeah, because the Imperator usually just took his head and his hands, and so that might make doing experimentation a little bit harder. He's got pinchers instead of hands, but because at that point he had joined the Decepticons, he takes back one hand and puts a weapon on the other. So, that's the MO for.
Yep.
Our shockwave throughout IDW's one hand and one weapon.
Yep.
So.
And that is what makes him so awesome.
Yep. I also like the fact that he's like, hey, eventually Orion Pax will give up on me, because he keeps on coming back and asking him, hey, this is not you. And I'm like going, about that. We'll find out the end of Dark Cybertron, just how well you are at predicting how soon Orion Pax is going to change.
Oh, I love the bottom panel there. One day Orion Pax would stop believing, just that he automatically knows. Absolutely love that.
Does he really, though? I mean, the end of Dark Cybertron, does he ever really?
I honestly don't remember. I have to reread Dark Cybertron.
Well, I'll reveal it. He doesn't. There are just some things that can't change, and that's Orion Pax, I think, will always give everybody a second chance. I think he just mourns him, if anything else, and he does take him out of his misery, but it's not because he didn't think that he couldn't change. It was just that he put himself in a position where the only way to stop what he puts into play with Dark Cybertron is that, he's got to stop him, kill him, put him out of his misery. Oh, goodness. And then that whole conversation between Optimus Prime and Megatron afterwards, just brilliant. I just think that there are just some universal consistencies. Optimus Prime will always give everybody a second chance.
And Megatron won't even give people a first chance half the time.
Yeah. We also, in this issue, get a list of ores, or at least some of them, but we find out that there are 14 of them that Soundwave has seeded throughout the universe in different places. So, we don't get all of them, like I said, but Earth has one.
Yep.
And we've already found about Ardra having another, and LV-117, which was the crazy time planet where Wheelie got stuck. And then, of course, Cybertron, the first one that he seeded.
Yep.
Yep.
I absolutely love issue 17. I love that it continues the origin reveals for Shockwave and how he became encamped with the Decepticons, more so to fit his own ends, not necessarily that he is one.
Yeah.
But, you know...
It did kind of put that across, is that he's not really and I think nothing more than seeing the last two issues of this volume kind of put that perfectly clear, that he was one of them only by choice, and because it was a means to an end for him. So...
Right, absolutely.
And one other little thing that I wanted to put in here too about this issue is the call out to a Marvel cover with the one where it says all are dead, because Soundwave in this issue, once he becomes the Soundwave that we all know and love, he starts experimenting. And he starts blowing people up. So we get this really morbid full page spread of him in kind of a all are dead kind of homage that were in one of the issues. I believe it was, I want to say issue 1, but I could be wrong. The Marvel issue 1, where you have all the Autobots hanging from the ceiling. There's a Levio did a version of that in this, so it was really cool.
That's awesome. And the coolest thing about what I noticed in this issue is that Levio, depending on the time frame of the events of the issue, he constantly changes Shockwave's design. Not the head, more so the body and the color, like the color of purple, and like on page 17 that I was telling you about, Orion Pax, that middle panel there, his chest and stomach look like they're pinkish purple, not necessarily full-on purple, where you look at that full page spread on 16 where he says that effect should prove useful. It's all purple because he's half in shadow.
Yeah.
I just love how Livio did the colors in this one.
It's very, very moody.
Really, really do. Yeah, absolutely. And issue 18, this was back before I started getting trades. This is why I still have the single issues for Rid, from issue 17 to 22, because I was getting the single issues and just putting them on my shelf, because I wanted to read them later, because I had yet to catch up to the first 3 volumes of the series, I got cover A because the RC cover just didn't. Folks, we've done 5 More Than Meets the Eye episodes. We've done, well, at this point, we will have done 5 Robots in Disguise episodes. If you can't tell by now, I don't like RC's IDW design. It's too weird for me. I don't know, it's just the way that they draw her and the way that her character is. I like her attitude. I like her personality. I like how she is this crazy chick, but I don't know. The design just doesn't. I don't know. I almost wish I had the RI cover for this one though, because it's a gold bug.
Yep. It is an absolute gold bug. Especially since this is the issue that we see his new alt mode.
Yep.
Oh, good times.
I'm kind of happy that this happened, though, honestly. I mean, I know that sounds probably pretty morbid, that I'm happy that Bumblebee got destroyed. But, I've always loved Bumblebee. I will never not say that I've always loved Dan Gilvezan as the voice of Bumblebee. But I like the evolution of the character here as far as his body and the fact that that they're not just ignored, like, oh, Goldbug, everybody hates Goldbug, nobody cares, just give us Bumblebee, damn it. And it's not like we can have Bumble baggage anymore now that he's a gold bug.
Yeah. Yeah, we can't call him Bumble Baggage, but I think that's kind of the point. He's not the leader anymore, so he doesn't
True.
have the Bumble Baggage.
True.
The Bumble Baggage has thrown him out of leadership.
Very much so. So out of the covers for issue 18, which one did you choose? Or which one would you choose if you had to choose again?
I ended up going with cover A. Probably more just because it seemed to fit the issue, even though I know it's very RC centric. After reading through this, I kind of look at this as it's honestly, it's like the Autobot like soap opera. Because there's so much going on, and it's just all in the Autobot camp, but it's just the conflict between these guys is just rich, and it's all coming. It kind of works around RC because she's the point of view character as she's telling the story. But I thought after seeing that cover that I thought that it worked really great, because the Autobots really are in the worst place possible, and they're arguing at each other's throats and turning on each other, and it's just like yeah, it's fun.
That's one thing I've noticed, and I'll mention this a little bit more when we get to the Shockwave and Soundwave issues, but one thing I've noticed reading this entire arc, these issues, is that the Decepticons are the good guys, and the Autobots are it's like we're living in Shattered Glass without them actually calling it Shattered Glass, because when we get to, later, when we get to Soundwave and Shockwave, they say that they actually say the Autobot oppression.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Wow. It's like,
well, technically, it was the Autobot oppression, because they were the ones that were supporting the Senate at the time, even though there was corruption, and things did need to change. The point is that once the Senate was taken out, you think that then the Decepticons kind of pushed for. I think it was just the fact that the Autobots were just trying to put the same regime back together.
Yeah.
But that wasn't okay for the Decepticons.
No. And that wasn't okay for the Nails either.
No. Well, I mean, I think the Nails were just the people that were, stuck in between. And didn't want to have to worry about this, especially since their whole world had already been, turned upside down with the Senate being destroyed. But then they had the whole, again, coming back to these threads that have been there that we just kind of really whacking me in the head now. With the Energon crisis that was going on, it's just like too much. So it was understandable.
So we
pretty much pick up right where we left off in the last arc, except everybody's getting kicked out basically, and RC's kind of narrating.
Starscream is in power.
Well, he said the right thing at the right time.
Yeah.
It didn't help that he killed his friend, and it just seemed to work out perfectly.
Well, that'll come back to bite him in the ass, killing his friend.
Yeah, it kind of does. The only problem is that if Dark Cybertron wasn't going on, then he might have actually really kicked him out of power. Ah, darn it.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, we get basically, we pick up from right where we left off, and we see the division of those who stay and those who leave, and the concerns of sending them out into the unknown wilderness because, hey, there's that signal out there. And although Starscream kind of tells him, well, that was from Megatron, and he's indefinitely, indisposed, yeah. So you have nothing to worry about there, but, it's just like, well, there's just the unknown. It's the wilderness, and basically they are cast out. They are not just cast out by Starscream. Well, it's his pretty words that pretty much put him there. But, the Niles are kicking out all of the people that are causing all the fighting.
Yeah.
And we see some that stay and some that don't. And, well...
Second Exodus. John's repeating himself. Because they kicked Optimus out.
That's true. That was the first. Yeah. We do find out that Jazz stays. We find out that the Constructicons follow Prowl, which I thought was brilliant. I mean, what a way to kind of shake things up is that instead of going with their own, we've got some Decepticons that like the way Prowl thinks so much that they decide to follow him. And it's just brilliant because even later on, the Decepticons have no idea that these guys have gone with the Autobots. They have no idea. I'm sure they'd be really ticked off if they found out, but it was just like they didn't tell anybody. They just said, you know what? We're going to go where he is because guess what? He knows where it's at.
Yep.
But it gets even better. This is where I say it's the whole soap opera thing. RC admits to killing Ratbat. Bumblebee then succumbs to his injuries. And it's just... Okay, then we get this whole Constructicon RC standoff where they're punching each other, and she's finally in her element. And, of course, it's encouraged by people like Cliffjumper who are just standing by like, no, let him fight it out. This is entertaining. And it's broke up by Ironhide because, he's got to be there's got to be a reasonable one, and that would be Ironhide, right?
Thanks for noticing me.
Exactly. And then he calls in the Dinobots to kind of play his, like, bouncers. And when Slag offers a hand of friendship and a drink to RC, she slaps it away. It's like, oh my gosh, the drama in this issue was just hilarious.
What would happen if the Transformers Robots in Disguise was an actual soap opera on television?
Well, that's this issue. That's this issue.
I know.
It really is.
Yeah. It really is. There's so much drama going on here.
Yeah. The good thing is that I really liked this issue because it kind of showed that even after RC has been for the last 12 issues living and being among people, she still hasn't really integrated. She doesn't know where her place is, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, she seems to be the most happiest when she's fighting and, duking it out with somebody. She's got a smile on her face and she feels like everything's right with the world. But when she has to kind of navigate whether or not it's the right time to admit, killing Ratbat, or to go find a way to get in to see Bumblebee, and she's rejected, and it's like she's not quite sure how to navigate that because she was pretty sure that Sideswipe would let her in, and it just was not the appropriate time. And so she's just kind of that outcast that's not quite figured out where her feet are in the Autobot group.
Yeah, and what really shocks me a little bit more, and I guess this is me coming from a background of just the cartoons, not really the old Marvel stuff, but the fact that they've set up social structure among Transformers. Like, I mean, I've read the War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, the actual books. The prose novels.
Yeah.
Are it's not Fallen. What the hell are the you know what I'm talking about?
Talking about Exodus, Exiles.
Exodus and Exiles. And, thank you.
Retribution
yes. I have not read Retribution yet. I want to, but I haven't yet. But yeah,
yet either because I haven't finished the Exiles yet. But then Chris McFeel told me, "Don't even just skip it.
You don't need honestly, it's not worth it. It's basically it's like watching Armada all over again."
I never watched Armada, but when I was reading this, I was thinking, this seems like it's been done already.
Yeah. I mean, the only reason why I bring the books up is because those set up social structure in Transformers, and this is doing that as the same thing. And I like it. It's interesting. I just never thought of it that way. I guess I'm one of those fans that either you're an Autobot or you're a Decepticon, which the point of this entire arc is for Starscream to throw all that out.
Yeah.
And just be Cybertronians.
Yep.
So we get to Bumblebee being touch and go.
Yep. But he finally does pull through.
Yeah.
Surprise!
Surprise!
And he also gets the whole, gold bug repaint.
Yep.
So comes out looking new and shiny. Out of Fix-It's, what is it, trailer? Yep.
Yeah. And it's so weird to me that it's not any medic Autobot that I know. Like, I know Ratchet and First Aid are on the Lost Light, but like till this point, I've never heard of Fix-It. I don't think other than the new upcoming cartoon series where he'll be in that or some world.
I think he was in animated, wasn't he?
Fix-It?
I think he
might have been.
He was one of the background characters or something.
Yeah. This one, I'll say this about Cybertron itself. It always surprises me that this planet has a sun and a moon, and they have daylight and nighttime. It really does, because I don't know, I just can't see the Cybertronians having what Earthlings have, as far as, sunlight and moonlight, and I don't know, it's not strange, but it's just one of those little things that just...
It's a living and breathing planet,
Yeah.
Yep.
Issue 18, it was really good. It was nice to see what happened to everybody between the end of 16 and this. I really did enjoy it. I love the art. Outside of RC, but that's just my own personal issue, I guess.
I'm not a fan of what Attillo did with RC in this issue. I think the close-ups of her eyes looked fine. It's just that there are parts where she just...
Yeah.
It's odd. It's odd.
And honestly, I can safely say I prefer Livio.
Yeah.
Nothing against Attillo, but I if Casey was going to jump on and do art, because I think he has it a couple points, hasn't he?
I would love to have him do an art in a whole issue or something like that. That would be brilliant. Yeah. I know that he probably won't, but just because he's got a couple different jobs and just uncovers because of that. But still, it's just, we haven't seen him actually do any interiors, I think, since Ironhide mini.
Right.
I think he's done maybe a couple splash pages. Oh, I take that back. He did issue 31.
Oh, okay.
With Casa's last run. That was his last one that he's done, was issue 31, Casa's last issue. So, which was very pretty. I liked all of it about it. If we could get Casey doing interiors, I'd be like, yay! But maybe occasionally, bring back the spotlights and we'll get a Casey issue. There you go.
Yeah. Right now, I can safely say I like Andrew and Livio the best on Rid. Yeah. Honestly.
They seem to really fit it really well. It'll be interesting to see how Sarah Stone fits into that dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how that happens.
Yep. But this issue wraps up.
Go ahead. Yep.
It wraps up with a distant fireball with a shockwave preceding it. It's tying it all into Dark Cybertron, but that's what the Autobots did up until now, and then we'll go find out what the Decepticons did in issue 20. Actually, 21. 22. No. Goodness.
20.
Yeah.
Because 19 is Optimus.
Yeah, 19 is the Optimus story. 20 is the Starscream and Iacon situation. And
then 21 and 22 are Shockwave and Soundwave.
Man, there's a lot of arcs for John to be juggling here. It's like every little group is split off and has their own little...
But he does it so well.
Yeah, I mean, going back and reading it, I know, like we said, this volume was difficult at first just because the cohesion just seemed so odd. But if you look at it, it's like... It's pretty much putting all their ducks in a row to be ready for Dark Cybertron.
See, when I read through issues 12 through 16 in Volume 4, I felt like that was taking forever to get it. And I was sitting here, at my desk reading it on Comixology, and it just felt like the story was taking forever overall. When I said, I couldn't believe earlier this morning, I started, because I'd started the night before. I got through 17 and 18, and then this morning I read 19 through 22. By the time I got to the second to last panel of 22, I was like, wait, what? That's it? It's over? Holy crap. This arc went so fast, and John juggles everything so well.
Yeah.
So issue 19...
Everybody gets their moment.
Oh, wait, yeah. issue 19, I have cover A, which is Optimus pointing a gun at us.
Yep.
The other covers are... Cover B is done by Casey.
And then we have a... Oh, go ahead.
It's Optimus, and I can't make it out inside the issue.
Yeah, it's Optimus, it's Hardhead, it's...
Okay.
I can't remember the guy's name now. Garrick, yeah. And Wheelie with his trusty slingshot.
Yes.
On Garrus 9. Or not Garrus 9. Gorlin Prime. There you go.
Yeah.
Kind of rhymed a little bit there.
And then the retail incentive is Waspinator.
By Phil Jimenez.
Yep. I've said this before. I'm not too sure why they're bringing in Beast Wars characters. I think the origins of how Rat Trap showed up and how Waspinator showed up are fine as far as the story goes. I just don't know why it had to be those characters. I'm not sure why it had to be those characters from what I generally know is from Beast Wars.
I think this had a lot to do with the toys, to be honest.
Probably.
I think it was something that it was probably discussed. Maybe they knew ahead of time which ones were coming out, and it just made sense. They found a way to work it into the story. I think Waspinators is probably one of the only ones that's the most veiled. That's just like, you really had to really push it there, didn't you? He just, it's because he has a special stinger that can control Titans. And that one is probably the thinnest explanation out of all of them. But
I remember when Dark Cybertron was going on, and we will get to this, ladies and gentlemen. So, a little bit of a spoiler warning here, but I remember when Dark Cybertron was going on, and the issue came out about him being, his stinger being the control rod for whatever the hell was going on in Dark Cybertron. I remember Ender going off. He went off on a tirade about it. It's like, oh, yep. Great, Waspinator's stinger. Oh, and he just...
It was a little far-fetched, just saying.
Classic Ender fashion of making things, yeah.
That being said, though, I do like what they have done with the guy since then. I mean, maybe his origins at this point were a little weird. And it kind of did make sense only to the point that, at the very beginning of Robots in Disguise, everybody starts coming back and they've been, spread out all over the universe. Skybite was probably the easiest one to accept because everybody likes Skybite. But Waspinator? Him showing up, it's just, yeah. But, that being said, it all worked out.
Yeah.
So
this issue we have, the art is done by it's done by Verma.
Daraj Verma.
Thank you. The colors are done by Joanna LaFuente. Daraj Verma, the first time I saw him was, I think it was fall of Cybertron.
It was the fall of Cybertron mini tie-in with the game, basically.
Mm-hmm. And then did he do stuff on Rage?
No.
Oh no, that's.
This was the second time that we've actually seen him do work in. I looked it up. I looked it up to make sure. It's on the wiki. This is the second time that he has worked on Transformers at this point. I think he may have done a cover, but I can't recall. It's been a good year since we've seen him, I think. But yeah, this was the second issue that he had actually done where he's working in IDW verse and not just the game verse. Mm-hmm. I do have to say, I know we skipped it, but I will say that I did pick up his cover for this issue. I know that it's kind of wonky and the proportions are kind of strange, but there's just something about it that really I liked. Maybe it's the coloring, maybe it's the way that it looks kind of painterly or even sketched, like he used pastels or something like that. But
you mean the Optimus cover?
Yeah,
right?
The Optimus cover. This issue is such an odd one because there are moments where I kind of like it for its artistic license of just taking and doing stuff that it does. But then there are a lot of moments where it's just like it just kind of really odd. And the proportions look kind of strange. And even in moments where we even see, like, later on in the issue where we have two Titans fighting and the proportions are so off, I think there's a stretch to artistic license.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Optimus he's in a weird pose. Like, we see his left leg, but it's like somebody cut off his right leg, honestly.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't even see it
because there's a shadow, but
yeah, I mean, I like the whole gun pointing at the reader thing. I like the gun pointing at the camera thing, but if you look at his left side under his cap here, it reminds me of Transformers the movie when Megatron slices him and he's holding his stomach.
Yeah.
And then Megatron, goes up and comes down on top. That's what it reminds me of a little bit. I like it. Out of the covers, I like the Optimus one the best, and that's the one that I have because I thought it was the coolest. And getting into the issue, the art is, at least the first page, it's okay because it's a different.
It's a bar. It's a bar scene.
Yeah.
Which, it's kind of funny because, really even the last issue that we saw of Optimus Prime before he goes to LV-117, he meets these guys in a bar. So it's like, hey, bar scene. Woohoo! When you're part of the universal galactic community, you just go hang out in bars. There you go. Hey! That's what you do.
Yep.
Do you want me to summarize this one really?
Yeah, you can.
All right, so Orion Pax basically, we saw him in issue 10. Now he's back in what is this, issue 19. Orion Pax returns to Goron Prime, which plays it played a role in Heart of Darkness, as it had the active portal to the dead universe, but it's pretty much a dead world at this point now because all that's gone. Jahaxis and company show up there as well, which we find out actually, a couple of issues from now that Jahaxis was just hanging out in space waiting for him to show up. So 2 ores, I believe, or no, actually not 2 ores. One of the ores is found here because it's one of the places where Shockwave seeded stuff. And the planet basically collapses in and on itself, and Orion and company and Jahaxis, or they follow Jahaxis and company back towards Cybertron. So it's basically putting in play a thread that I didn't even consider. The whole idea that, and we'll get to it, and basically bringing Optimus Prime back to Cybertron. This is the catalyst that brings him back. But one of the things that happens here is that they're there basically at the bar to nab Waspinator because he's got that whole stinger thing, and they need that for what they're about to do. The whole point was to lure Orion Pax back to the planet, get in a fight, so that he would basically call forth another Metro Titan. Because while he's there, they have a battle with Monstructor and things look pretty weird, and Waspinator says the right thing at the right time. Says, you can sense it, right? And he says, oh, that's right, there's a Metro Titan here. And he wakes it up, and that's exactly what they wanted him to do. So
now this Metro Titan is not Metroplex.
No, this Metro Titan is not Metroplex.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just want to double check and make sure of that, because at first when I saw it, I thought it was. So
it kind of has the design kind of looking like, but it is not. It's the one that's going to be used in Dark Cybertron. If you remember right, they find Metroplex in More Than Meets the Eye.
Right.
The More Than Meets the Eye issue, and then this is the other one that they have dark reasons for bringing him back because he's already been infused with one of the ores. And him going back to Cybertron means that he's bringing back an ore, and that ore is going to combine with the next ore, and that's what we see at the very end of this volume. Issue 22 is what we see with him. So,
absolutely.
Yep. Oh, the other thing I wanted to say about this too is that that whole conversation that we had in the last volume about Bumblebee saying, "Hey, Optimus Prime has." Taught me that it's not a trap if you know it's a trap. Yeah, We have that conversation again here, where Optimus Prime's like, I encourage all my friends to know that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Again, there's no army. Where's your army then if you know it's a trap? Oh, goodness.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
As I read this issue, I got to liking the art a little bit more as it went along.
Mm-hmm.
I still think Andrew and Livio do a better job, but this is not bad. I would say for me, this is like this is in between as far as being good or being god awful.
Yeah, I'd say I would take this over the Heart of Darkness artist. In fact, the fact that we're at the same place where the Heart of Darkness guy had to be, I mean, you know, I liked it better because of that. And Optimus Prime looks like he has toes in the last panel. Oh, second to last panel.
Yeah.
He needs to go pick his toes, make sure that they're clean in between. Sorry.
It does. If people that listen to the pull bag remember way back when Superior Spider-Man started, I'm not usually one to just comment on how feet look, but the way that they made Superior Spider-Man look as if he basically looked like he had Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle toes, as like his costume. Right. It wasn't just one like foot, like it wasn't just one boot. They actually showed one toe and then the rest of his foot. It was just too weird for me. It's just too weird. But yeah, no, this is a little crazy. So Optimus, you know,
and Hardhead does not look like a robot. He looks like a dude with metal on him.
Yeah,
doesn't look like Hardhead at all. So,
I will say about this issue, I was actually hoping that John would do something else with Wheelie, but we got to keep the classic Wheelie rhyming. I don't dislike it here. It's not as bad here as it is in Transformers the movie and in other. I was hoping that they would take away the one thing that a lot of people don't like about Wheelie, which is that he rhymes all the time.
And you're a poet and you didn't know it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I know.
I thought another thing that was interesting in this issue too is that they find there's a city in the catacombs, whereas before it was filled with basically the portal. There's it predates. It's like it looks to be part of the era of the Titans, as if when the Titans left, this might have been where one of them like came and that was only just kind of building up to the point that, hey, guess what? There is a Metro Titan there. It's been dead for a long time, but not when you have a Prime around. A true Prime can wake anything up, right?
Yeah, a true Matrix bearer. Waspinator should have never said that.
Yeah.
Just talk about saying the wrong thing at the right time.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, this issue is interesting. It's nice to see, where Optimus is and what he's doing. When I think of Hardhead, I always think of Rebirth and Headmasters and all that stuff. So it was interesting to see a little bit, not necessarily a different take on him, but a different version of him.
Yeah.
And overall, I enjoyed this issue, but not as much as I enjoyed the previous two.
Yeah. It was kind of like one of those issues that, well, we've got Prime out there too, and we know that he's going to play a role in something, so we got to bring him back. This is that issue that just brings him back. In fact, it just seems like it goes by so quickly that, I mean, we've probably spent the least amount talking about this on this one because it just, the whole point was just to basically wake a Titan up, bring him back.
Yep.
That's all we really need is just wake a Titan up,
bring him back.
Oh, and make sure that Waspinator's in control too. So yeah, just had to grab a few people, throw it together, boom. Now we've got a motivation for Optimus Prime to come back. He's following Jahaxis. He wants to stop Shockwave. And that's that's a theme that's already been kind of set up already because of the first issue that we got with this guy. So
I will say I don't know who does, like, I'm not sure, like, I know who does cover. I know, like, Griffith or Casey or, they do the actual covers. I'm not sure who does, like, the letters and all that stuff on the covers. I'm not sure if that would be Chris Mowry or somebody else. There are some times on some of these covers that I wish they would use, like, the purple and blue like the old purple and blue Decepticon colors from the old toys.
Yeah.
So I really wish that they would do that. We are going to take a quick break here. You're going to hear some Transformers audio, and we will be back with issue 20 after this.
How do you feel, mighty Megatron? Astro Train, transform and get us out of here!
Don't leave me, Soundwave. As you command, Megatron.
We are back, and it is time to talk about issues 20 through 22 of Robots in Disguise. Issue 20, Heavy is the Head That Wears the Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Coronation Starscream, this is bad comedy.
Yeah, no kidding. And then on top of that, he does, I mean, quite literally, Heavy is the head. He has several things to juggle in this issue. It's crazy. I mean, hey, you wanted this job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we go back to Iacon to find out what's going on with Starscream having usurped all the power and killed his friend to be the boss.
Yep.
So what happens when you start doing that, dude?
Yep.
You start killing friends, you lose friends. You start getting minions. And minions that you have to keep in line, Hey, ask Megatron about keeping minions in line. He's had to do that for a while, too. How many friends does he have? Well, I'd have to say we'll get to that in the next issue.
Yeah. What I love about, and they've done this several times in both ongoings, I love it when they do interlocking covers. I really do. Because Livio has the retail incentive, and it's Starscream. Casey has cover B, which is the Crown cover, and then Andrew has cover A. I couldn't get the retail incentive, but I got cover B. That was the one I liked the most out of the three.
Yeah, I think if I had a choice, I think I ended up getting cover A. But if I had a choice, I probably would have gone with cover B because it's perfect for this issue. Mm-hmm. Not that the other one isn't, it's just that there's something about having a crowned Starscream. It's just perfect.
Yes, it is. So we've got so Starscream talks with the dead I was going to say Mechanic. Wow, that's a whole other universe. The dead Metal Hawk. And he also has a chat with Megatron. I find it really funny. I mean, it's not really ironic, but whenever Megatron is incapacitated, Starscream is how we always know Starscream to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, when Megatron... I believe Megatron was... When he was in the Metabay, wasn't he clamped down? Last time when
he was behind bars, and it was clamped down, you're right. But he was also looking the worst for wear as well. And he was completely disarmed, and they had verified that.
Exactly, and then as soon as he smiles, Starscream just freaks out.
He smiled, get out! Yeah. Yeah, big baby. I also find it was very interesting that here we see, like at the very beginning, he's talking at the very beginning to Metal Hawk. I find it really funny that he's got like energy beams around it to protect it, but also on the wall is a picture of Starscream and Metal Hawk. Nothing could be totally further from the truth of that.
Yeah, no. Not at all. I mean, that is funny, though. Oh wow, yeah, that's
First page, big.
no, yeah,
everything.
It looks like a headboard, honestly. Looks like a giant headboard.
Yeah.
The title for this one: 3 monologues, 1 long night.
It's going to be a long one, Starscream. It's your first day, and you already have things stacked against you.
All I can think of is Tom Kenny's Starscream animated once he meets all the clones and asks about Slipstream, and he says, "It's going to be a long orbital cycle." That's all I can think of after seeing that title. At this point, even though I don't like the Armada body that he was given, at this point I'm ready for him to get a new body, because having an exposed cockpit just looks weird.
It does look a little bit odd, but it's kind of interesting because we also have one leader out of the 3 that we remember at the very in the first year of Robots in Disguise. Robots, blah, blah. Yeah, the frogs in disguise. We had 3 that represented like 3 different factions. We had the Autobot, which was Bumblebee. We had the Decepticon, which was Starscream, and we had the Nail, which was Metalhawk. And I find it really not ironic, but really interesting that both the 2 that are surviving still are the ones that get the redesigns. Mm-hmm. I just like that. I thought that was kind of funny. Like, in his own way, Starscream is doing exactly what somebody else is already doing, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I guess I expect him to be doing that because he wants to one-up somebody. But here it's just like, the irony is he doesn't realize that Bumblebee has gotten a redesign, and then he decides to have one too. I mean, he's already done that, but yeah.
Yeah. What is interesting about this issue, this directly ties into Windblade without it even really directly tying into Windblade.
Yeah.
Power outages all over Iacon.
Yes, but then we also find out something about those power outages, right?
Mm-hmm.
That somebody might have done them.
Mm-hmm.
And although somebody tries to pin it on someone, that we find out in the end was actually completely altruistic and wanted to do the right thing. After reading this issue, especially getting to the very end, I'm like, I wonder if a certain rat had something to do with that.
Of course he did. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't just setting somebody up for just nothing, I think he was doing that. He was manipulating, obviously, but thank heavens that Starscream can see through that. But it makes me sad for Scoop, because he really was actually trying to do the right thing, and too bad.
Yeah, it's a really funny way how they politically turned that around on his ass.
Because for me, I thought, wow, Rat Trap. We get Rat Trap, we get Scoop. New character, well, not new characters, but new for IDW. I mean, I don't think Scoop is new, but I think
he's probably been one of the background characters.
I think he's been one of the background characters. He takes a step forward here, and he continues to do so throughout Dark Cybertron, at least for a while. But the thing is that Rat Trap shows up, power outages start happening. Scoop is the proactive one that tries to do the right thing to fix things, and he genuinely is that guy. But then you actually start talking with him, and you find out that he's just a religious zealot as well, spouting out prophecies and. And I think in a sense it's kind of sad, because Starscream really could use one of those guys that really believes in him, even if it's a zealot, because he doesn't have friends. The friends that he has are usually people that he ends up backstabbing in one way or the other, or he just having one of those people is just like very difficult for him. Probably because of his really bad relationship with Megatron, he can't ever have real friends. but he distrusts a lot of people. So it's like he has to have people around him that he distrusts more than people that he can actually trust, which is really odd. But hey, you know, he likes the abuse.
Yeah, and I think I could be wrong, but I think this is the first and only time I've ever seen Rat Trap's rat mode IDW style.
Yeah,
I'm sure it is the only time.
I think it's the first and only time that we've ever seen that.
All right, it's interesting. I still, as much as I am a diehard, well, I wouldn't say I'm a diehard. Steve Megatron is the diehard Beast Wars fan, but as much as I am a fan of Beast Wars, I'm just not sure about, like, I wouldn't have had a problem if they put Rattle Trap in here from animated. I honestly wouldn't have had a problem with that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna get used to Rat Trap, and by the end of this issue, I have gotten used to him. But my first reaction is just like, this is too weird.
Yeah, I guess I can understand that because, again, it's odd whenever you see like an animal-ish transformer. I guess just because nobody else transforms into that. I don't know why it is that Skybite is just so easily accepted, because it kind of breaks your brain too. But for some reason, it's comical, and I like it because of that. But then you get more characters in there, and you're like, it just kind of breaks my brain a little bit. But yeah.
So we get Starscream meeting Rat Trap, and I do love how, I don't think Starscream screamed this, but he's like, what is that smell? I do love that. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, especially for, those of us that can't really smell what he's smelling, but, the fact that they bring it up twice, actually. One, when he just said, actually 3 times. One where he says, what is that smell? 2, join me and I will make you, clean up. And 3, he goes to the place where he's supposed to, kind of his pad, and says it smells worse than you do. So it's just like the fact that they've said it 3 times kind of solidifies the fact that Rat Trap, you stink, man. You stink.
So we get Megatron still in his energy force field bubble prison.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if he was actually able to listen at all, because of that looks pretty bad, yo. I don't know if he's, if there's if he can actually hear in that body or not, because he looks like he's landlocked or, spark locked or something.
Yeah, and it's a cool design on Megatron. It's basically the same design we had earlier when he got his new body, but having the blue all around it and everything else, it is really cool.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. It's a very cool. It doesn't look like he's escaping that anytime soon. Somebody else is going to have to turn that off to fix that.
Yeah. It's kind of like the plasma energy chamber in Rebirth.
Nice.
Plasma energy. It is raw energy.
Yeah. Well, another thing that happens in this, again, coming back to this whole issue that, Starscream has with friends, is he goes to talk to Dirge, and they have this nice little spat, and it almost pretty much what am I trying to say? Okay, it almost flies in his face, basically, and luckily for him, he uses his politician skills to kind of smooth it over, because it could have been a bad thing.
Yeah, it very much could have. Because it looked like he was going to basically just punch Dirge in the spark there for a little while.
Yeah, especially since the public perception at this point is, because Dirge played a hand in stopping Megatron, he's a war hero now.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that the Longtooth and Circuit are, doing their journalistic interviews and keeping an eye on all of the people that they deem as heroes.
Yeah.
So you gotta watch it there. That's the only thing about being a politician, is that now you've got a public perception to keep up, and if you blow it, those guys, those journalists will, those paparazzi will destroy you easily.
Yes, they will.
And who knows, maybe Scoop would be the next guy in charge.
Oh, God. I honestly cannot see them putting any, like, non-familiar Transformers character in charge of Cybertron. I really can't. I mean, hell, have Grimlock come back and have him be in charge. That'd be better than having Scoop.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still off playing Jenga. I also think that it was kind of really cool that we find out that Blur was also one of the guys that stayed behind. He said, nope, not going to do it. Not going to get into the whole war thing again. He's a bartender now, and he likes doing that. And he's pretty quick to point out to Starscream that, yeah, you're the lesser of two evils. The only reason why we voted you in is because we didn't like the other two even worse. So it's like, hey, yeah. But that doesn't mean that you don't have issues and that you can't be replaced. So, yeah. And the power outages, of course. I like the fact that he asked him, hey, let me use the bar to get to know the Cybertronians. Kind of laughs at him for that. You're like, really? You're calling them Cybertronians? It's like, hey, I've got a good idea. You want to get on their side? Do something about the power outages. So, yeah. There you go. Get something done and people will like you.
Yeah. I do love the art. The only thing that really kind of bugs me, and it's not just because of this being Griffith, I don't think transformations work that well in this. I don't know, like, sometimes when they... Maybe it's me. Honestly, maybe it is me, but, like, the page where Rat Trap transforms for the first time into his robot mode. Mm-hmm. Where is that page?
I believe it's page 9.
Yeah. Like, if you look at... I mean, you see... he still has that thing in his mouth. He has whatever the cup link.
The cup link, yeah.
And you see it as he's transforming it on the next panel. As he's transforming it, moves out of his mouth and embeds into his face as he's transforming to get it.
No, it actually it's like he let it go and transformed, and it fell into his hand conveniently. You know.
I don't know, just that upper panel of the rat face with the thing next to his face.
Yeah.
It makes me. Yeah. And then that's what I mean. Like, the art overall, I absolutely love it. I'm not saying I dislike the art at all. I'm just saying, like, the transformations, sometimes they are a little strange to me.
Mm. I always thought it was kind of odd whenever they try to draw transformations in here, because, I mean, there are some places where I've actually seen it that I think it kind of works, but I've always been kind of, why did they do that? I mean, I know that they're doing what they're doing, but I've always kind of looked at it as, like, really, it's just an odd Transformers thing. You're not going to find that much in other comics, right? Of course, there are not that many other characters that, like, transform like that in front of you.
Yeah, true.
So,
and maybe it's just me with that panel with Rat Trap, because I didn't have a problem earlier when Starscream I think it's just, it depends on how it's drawn, honestly.
Maybe it's just that panel then.
Yeah. I think the one person that does it amazingly is Sarah Stone. She does them really good.
She gives it movement in a sense. I mean, this one where he's just standing there, I think it might just be that panel, because he's not really doing anything. He's just talking, and they're using the talking to transform, and there's not a lot of action. It just seems, like I said, it's like he could very easily be a talking head at this point, but to make it different, they put a transformation in there. So I don't know. I guess it just depends on maybe what the writer wanted him to write, to draw on there. I mean, maybe that had a lot to do with it too, and he couldn't think of anything better than, or he maybe was just thinking, oh well, it's been a while since I've seen a transformation. Let's throw that together, see what it does. So
overall, issue 20 is a nice look into Starscream, and I do like how John is doing these things where it's one character point of view and everything else happens around him.
yeah,
Or her, in RC's case, or her. And I do really like that. And I gotta say, if I was... when did this come out? This came... When did 21 and 22 come out? I know it was a while ago.
to the wiki.
Honestly, if I was gonna say, like, if I was gonna make like a top 5 list of my five favorite issues from Rid, probably tied for number 1 or maybe number 2 and number 1 would be 21 and 22, the Shockwave Soundwave issues, because like they're so good.
And this came out in August of 2013.
Oh, last year. So yeah, I would have made a top list for last year. I didn't, but I would have. So we get issue 21. I have cover B, which is done by Casey. It's Shockwave and Dreadwing with Soundwave in Shockwave's little chest window there. And this honestly is really the true... I mean... Everything with Shockwave to this point has been a prelude to Dark Cybertron, and the stuff with the Autobots and Starscream has been kind of like a finisher to the Volume 4 arc. But these next 2 issues are the actual, real preludes to Dark Cybertron.
Yeah, they do have the sense of... they are pretty much the real prelude. I think it's good to have the Shockwave issue, which would be, 17? And then these 2... really just seem to, fit together really well. But you're right. I think 21 and 22 seem to be the real, genuine preludes. The other stuff kind of put all of the ducks in the row that needed to be there, so we can have Optimus Prime. What the Autobots are up to, that type of thing.
Yeah. So we've got cover A, which is done by Andrew.
It's like a vignette kind of feel to it.
Yeah, as much as I like Andrew's covers, and as much as I like the Soundwave and the cassettes, I don't like the white background. Cover B is done by Casey, which is the one that I do have and the one that I really like out of the 3, and then the retail incentive is done by Livio.
Yeah. The only bone I have to pick with the Casey cover is the fact that it feels like their shoulders are so huge that they're like ripping out of the comic, and I almost want it to be just a little bit wider so I can actually see them, both him and Dreadwing.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Livio one, again, we have another Shockwave. I think maybe that's what I was getting at. The last Shockwave cover that we had was a little. It's funny, it's in the same chapter. It's in the same trade because the 17 was the one that had another Shockwave on it too. So
yeah,
I know it's kind of hard. I think it would have maybe Soundwave would have been cool. I don't know. Maybe the next one has a Soundwave on it. I'll go look real quick. But yeah, it just seems like we're getting a lot of Shockwave in this. So.
Yes, I'm looking at 22 right now. It is all wave.
Yeah.
Which is really cool because the cover Bs for both issues are done by Casey, and they're basically a mirror reflection. I mean, it's almost like you could put these 2 covers together and it would be a battle scene between Shockwave and Soundwave.
Yeah.
Because in 21 you've got Soundwave and Shockwave's chest piece, and in 22 you've got Shockwave and Soundwave's chest piece reflecting.
Nice.
So it's so good.
It's very subtle but very nice. Yeah.
Absolutely. And issue 21 and 22, there's so much to talk about. So much happens.
So many good things. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I broke it up into 2 different sections.
I I love the monologue from Soundwave. I I love that. I think that's great. And I love how they worked in the fact that he can't talk, but it's because he has something wrong with his... They basically bumblebeat him, if you really want to think about it.
Mm.
They movie bumblebeat him where, oh, something is wrong with your voice box.
Yeah.
You know? It's not... Like, I think it would have been a little different and a little strange if it was Soundwave's choice not to talk. But I absolutely love it.
It would have been really odd. The other thing that I like about this is we get a really good look as to how incredibly unique he is as a character. The fact that at the very beginning, and we find that it's funny because the second I'd have to look at the first 21, but as I was reviewing 22, I kind of noticed that we were going backwards. While we're going forwards in time, like from the present moment to the end, where we get the end result, we're also going backwards in time. Like the earliest being, the time that they were having the whole chaos, the chaos event, to the next time when they were on the asteroid. I mean, we're going like backwards in time. So we actually get his past at the very, 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 very end. And his the closer, like I said, the chaos event was at the very, very beginning. Then we go back to the next step, which was at the asteroid, and the next one after that. So it's like we're gradually going backwards as we're also going forwards in time. It was I kind of liked that. It was very unique. But we find out just how incredibly unique he is as an individual, because he gets overloaded with like so much like sound and stimuli that he basically becomes outcast out of need to be able to function. And I really liked that because I thought it's almost showing that his ability was also at first a disability. And he had to learn how to control that, and it was through the help of Laserbeak, Ravage, and Buzzsaw that he was able to do that. Which, I mean, I know I'm really skipping ahead here, but that's what makes him a Decepticon, is the true brotherhood of having that support, validation, and friendship with with these three other characters that happen across him, because they've also been discarded for whatever reason as well. I mean, they've been discarded because of the functionalist kind of attitude. Yeah. But it's also something that could be very relevant in today's society, because there are a lot of minorities and people, for whatever reason, that have, in a sense, feel outcasted or, discarded like that. And when they meet other people that feel the same way as they do, there's this really, you can create this really great community of individuals that understand that. And so it almost, to me, it made Soundwave incredibly vulnerable, but also relatable. And because of that, it's such a new look into him as a character. I really dug these issues because of that, because I think that is very relevant for any reader of today, because I think we see that a lot.
Oh yeah, you need to be able to get into the character, and these two issues are essentially Soundwave's origin.
Yeah.
And I love that. I wish it didn't take John 20 issues to get to it, but I understand why, and I
this came at the perfect time, because now Soundwave, I mean, according to these two issues, he's seeking to be the leader next.
Yep.
And, of course he does. He's the next leader. He's the next dude that wants to take the responsibility. Even if the other Decepticons are like, hey, we're not going to just give it to you. It's earned, blah, blah, blah. Because I like that, too. Because that's Decepticons for you. Because, yeah, leadership is not given. It's earned. You have to earn it. And I have no doubt that Soundwave will earn that. But it's just he desires to be the leader.
And I love that it's Astrotron and Blitzwing that basically oppress him or are against him leading the team. You know, it. I'm glad it's Astrotrain and Blitzwing, because if it was anybody else, it would be a little strange, because certain other characters that question his leadership, you know, Soundwave inferior.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, it's a nice reverse to what I know happened in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, nobody would ever follow an uncharismatic boy like you. It's so nice to see that it's Astrotrain and Blitzwing. And is this the first time we've seen Astrotrain and Blitzwing in this?
No, he's been in there, because remember he hit Swindle in the last chapter.
That's right. That's
volume.
That's right.
So he's been around. He was one of the thugs, you know, running around hitting and killing people with turmoil, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't make him white and black.
Yeah.
I'm glad they kept true to the Decepticon gray, purple, and pinkish red thing. Because that white and black reissue just, that toy.
Yeah.
Ugh. It's just the colors.
One of the biggest things that happen in issue 21, like I said, when I talk about, you know, where the flashbacks where we're starting at one point and going backwards. I liked the fact that we kind of get like a little bit more information that we didn't have before. Like about the chaos event that happened. During the joining of Devoid, where he like took in all of the Decepticons, they were all one. Shockwave was not with them when that happened. And I don't recall that being a thing. I don't remember reading Chaos and seeing Shockwave not among them. But I really liked that, because it illustrated pretty quick that not only is he, I mean, he's one of the Decepticons, but he's not really one of them.
Soundwave, to me, in this continuity, he's Swindle without being underhanded. Where Swindle is a mercenary, he's only out for himself, but he'll, you know, work for anybody for the right. Like Soundwave specifically says, you know, I am employed by Megatron. I don't serve him. I am not one of his Decepticons. So I like that. At the same time, I'm also kind of craving that old G1 loyalty. You know, I mean, I'm fine with it not being there, because, as you said earlier, this story makes him so interesting without needing to be a true Decepticon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess while you feel that way, I feel exactly opposite. I think that he is that guy that's the loyalist. He's not loyal to Megatron because Megatron is, you know, decreeing it and demanding it. He's loyal to the ideal, and as long as Megatron is also loyal to that ideal, he will have a loyal follower in Soundwave. And in fact, I'd even go as far as to say Soundwave is probably one of the only real friends that I think Megatron really has, because of that goal. When he does, of course, he's kind of lost vision in that, I guess, right now, because he's gone back on that in a sense, which, I mean, for Soundwave being the next leader, she should be, you know, feeling pretty betrayed about that, because out of everybody, it's Megatron that's given him the ability to become more than what he was at the time. And, you know, for me, I just feel like Soundwave is the guy that, because of his experience, because of the ties that he made with the Laserbeak, Buzzsaw, and Ravage, because of where he came from and where he's come to, because of that relationship that he had with those guys, that he is this loyalist because it means that much to him. It means that much to the people, or to these individuals that helped him out. And Megatron was that guy that basically gave them the voice and the ability to move from where they were in their station at life to where they are now. Someone that can aspire to leadership and take it.
Yeah. Before I just noticed this on the page before the flashback where we see Soundwave and Shockwave. When Soundwave, I assume it's the present, is fighting Dreadwing, Dreadwing says, "Don't wear it out, Soundwave. Nice punch for a lame-o." I have Headmaster's voice in my head for Dreadwing from
funny.
Animated. Oh my God,
no.
Masterson.
Oh, cute.
I
I can
love
totally see it now that you pointed it out.
I love what they did in the flashbacks, though. I love that they did the G1 body and that they had him, in order for him to work with Shockwave or, be employed by Shockwave or whatever, he had to get unstuck from his cassette deck mode.
Oh, I thought that was brilliant. I thought that because I know that's the post Soundwave Spotlight that they did the first one. This is like the Spotlight 2.0 version.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was great.
Oh, especially since it's like this whole manipulation thing going on. He's trying to find out this deal of what Shockwave has been up to all of these years, and all he has is a word, regenesis, but he doesn't get the information because Shockwave one-ups him. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. It was so brilliant. It's like, no, I won't give it to you because if you don't help me, I'll die and you won't get any information anyhow. And I was like, dude, you just got one-up by Shockwave. Oh, goodness.
And this is why I can... Out of the Season 1, Season 2 G1 characters, this is why I can safely say Shockwave and Soundwave are my two favorite Decepticons. Because of having read this story, these two issues, it gives so much more depth to both of them.
Yeah. And not only that, it's really good at subtly throwing the stuff in there to get to the very end, the clincher, when Megatron is the one that says, keep your eye on him, because Soundwave can't read his thoughts for whatever reason. He's got, whatever.
It's because Soundwave reads off of emotions.
Oh, that's right.
And he is emotional. With Shockwave,
Shockwave is not. So he doesn't trust him from the get-go. And because of that, Megatron is the one that says, follow him, find out what he's up to. And all of this time, that's exactly what Soundwave has been doing. And that's why I say he's the loyalist. It's because Megatron gave him that edict way back when the war was just new and everything. And he's been watching him with all of his eyes for this long to find out what's been going on.
I do love Soundwave's line, though, when Megatron says, Soundwave, keep an optic on him. Yeah. Yes, Lord Megatron, only one. I do love it. It's a nice little poke at Shockwave. I do really love that.
Yep.
And I wish we had more of the flashback. Like, I want more of the G1 design. I don't mind the War for Cybertron design that they're using in the present day. I like it. But I mean, this last page where the story title is revealed, and and he says, "I will not fail you, my lord." We need more old G1 Soundwave in comic form. We really do.
Yeah. Good times. We'll see what John has planned for us now that Soundwave is kind of the guy that's trying to take over. Mostly.
Yep.
If he's going to earn it, like from Galvatron or something.
Oh, Lord, that's a whole other bag of worms.
That's another podcast, too. So,
Galvatron. Yeah. Oh. So, we also, about halfway into the issue, we get the Titan.
The Metro Titan. Oh, yeah, that's right.
We get the Titan on Cybertron. So Dark Cybertron plan is set in motion.
Yep. Can't remember, was that on 21 or was that on 22?
Maybe it is 22. Maybe it is 22, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just looking through my notes real quick to see here.
Further back look of that's. I'm not sure, honestly, now.
Oh, man, I can't remember. I'd have to flip through the pages real quick.
It's probably 22. Honestly, though, 21 as an origin for Soundwave, and you don't like by the covers for 21.
No, it was in 22. It was in 22.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Then I jumped ahead in the notes.
That's okay.
I'm used to it. With the covers for 21, because they are all Shockwave, you would think it would be more about... I mean, it does have Shockwave in it, but it's Soundwave is narrating it for 21.
Yeah.
So, this is the first part of his origin, and then 22 we get the second part. Which I love how they did this. I really do. For 22, we have cover A is by Andrew, and it is it's Shockwave.
Shockwave with all of the people that have been helping him to build this whole Dark Cybertron. We've got Dreadwing, but we also have Jahaxis and Monstructor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then cover B, which is the one I have by Casey, it's Soundwave and the cassettes with Shockwave in his window. And then the retail is done by Livio, which is just Soundwave and Laserbeak.
Yep, I believe. I think it's Laserbeak, yeah.
Yeah.
In the War for Cybertron design.
Yep. I love cover B. This is one of the reasons why I want Casey to do interiors. I love his designs.
There's just a work about his stuff that seems so... it's kind of hard to... It's like the proportions are all so equal. Like, they're not too bulky and, buff, but it's just like this right balance between not being too buff, but not being too skinny and, bitty, right. And having all this little detail and stuff on it. It's just, I don't know. It's like every single time I see it, I can pin it really, really quick because of how consistent it is. But it's not overly detailed like Alex Milne's. It doesn't have the organic kind of feel to it that Andrew Griffith's stuff has. It's definitely not Livio's. So it's like it's got this feel to it that just seems like it's so equally balanced. And they look like robots. Not that the other ones don't. It's just there's just something about it that. Yeah.
And I think it's also because it's a mix of Soundwave's G1 and War for Cybertron design cover, plus how the cassettes look. I think Laserbeak is a little... At first I thought that was Ratbat. I know it's not.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it's the way his wings are. Maybe it's because they were going off the War for Cybertron.
It's the disc feel to it.
Yeah.
It's really more bulky than it should be, but that's because it's the disc look, which as ingenious as it was that they made that into a disc. It does seem a little bit bulky. So I know I said that twice, but
so this one starts off, and we have Soundwave confronting Shockwave, and this is where I said that Ravage, this guy bothering you, boss. That is the way that I hear it in my head. I hear Scott McNeil saying it as Rat Trap to Starscream. I'm not used to, as someone who hasn't read a lot of the Marvel stuff or any of the Marvel stuff, and I don't even remember reading it as a kid. I mean, IDW was my first, like the spotlights and this were and this and More Than Meets the Eye and all the other IDW stuff I've read was really my first foray into Transformers comics. And the only time I've ever heard Ravage talk is when he was reporting back to Megatron inside Soundwave, and he had some robotic voice by one of the old G1 voice actors. It was probably Welker or somebody. So
yeah.
Seeing him talk here in comics, I don't have a problem with it. It just threw me for a loop when he says, "This guy bothering you, boss."
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing that he talks, and as you've said, he is the spy. So
he is. He's the spy, and it's one of those things that as a spy, he's only going to be reporting when he gets the information. And it's kind of hard to bring that into the story. Usually you act after you have the information. I mean, so as a character, whenever and I kind of look at him as the guy, Ravage is the guy that doesn't say much because he only says important things when it's needed. You know what I mean? He just doesn't seem like that guy that's just going to rattle off stuff like Swindle or, chat at the bar like Blur or whatever. He's just silent and watching and always watching, So whenever he does say stuff, you kind of want to listen because he's that guy, He says things that are important when it's time to say them. So, and just in the last just in the last year, he seems to have been given a little bit more of a voice because John has been great about finding ways to pull him into the story, even though he's just that spy that is always silently watching. He's been really good at finding ways to give him a voice, and give some characters a voice that we'd like to hear from. I know that people would be like, "Hey, let's hear more from Ravage," He's always been a fan favorite. Let's hear him talk some more. Let's give him, something to actually latch onto. So, something that we can latch onto. So I'm really glad to see it.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's just like, oh, Ravage is speaking. I will listen then because he's that guy that doesn't talk a whole lot. So.
The one thing I'll say about issue 22, and I don't know if this will happen in the future. I don't honestly remember. Like, Dark Cybertron was a blur for me, so I'm kind of glad we're gonna be going back to it eventually. I wish I would see them more in tape form a couple of times. I know it's like, okay, outside of his chest, it's a little strange, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I get it, but. So we've got, we go back to the present where Soundwave basically punches Shockwave and they have this whole battle. I don't mind the back and forth here, but I do like the art in the past a little bit more than the present.
Yeah. There's something about the mood that just seems to... The mood of the past that maybe it's just the fact that because there's so much going on in the past, just giving little bits of payoff, I guess, that just you really want to know. You want to eat up all of these little past bits that are telling this story about Soundwave and why he is motivated to be the character that he is. The present stuff is still setting up Dark Cybertron, basically. Yeah. We get Soundwave basically is finding out and confronting Shockwave in what he is doing. And he's trying to stop him, but at the same time, while they're having this little battle, Ravage is shot and killed. It's like, oh! The last time we saw something like that was one of the, what was it, Rumble? In All Hail Megatron was like shot and killed or whatever, and he was carrying his body, and there's this moment where I remember quite a few people saying it was just like this huge moment because you never see him reacting like that to one of his guys being killed. But that it's just like, oh, Ravage, no. I mean, we're sitting here talking about how we're so happy to have Ravage and he's got a voice, and all of a sudden he's been killed on the page. But because it's happening in Crystal City, where the Regenesis or has been seeded. And we've already seen Dreadwing die and come back. That's what happens to Ravage. I was actually concerned at this point that he'd have some sort of power over Ravage.
Oh, Lord.
I really hope not, but it
No,
turns
that
out
would
that there
not
was
be
no
good.
real power there, but it was just the fact that it's a stalemate. If he's going to shoot Ravage and come back to life, if Soundwave kills Shockwave, he's just going to come back to life too. And I think at one point he does shoot him, and it doesn't really hurt Shockwave, but it's like, I think he realizes that, there's nothing that can be done here, because if I kill him, he's just going to come back because of where he's standing.
Yeah. I do love this it's on page 4. After we get the one on page 2 and 3 of the past and then the present. I do love page 4 for the present. Buzzsaw, Laserbeak, Rumble, Frenzy, Ravage, Eject. It's just so classic.
Yeah.
I love it, and I love what Ravage does. You made the mistake, no knows, for this time for you to lose. He just bites right on his gun. I love that.
Yep. It's brilliant.
That is so awesome.
Very, very brilliant. Yeah.
I honestly think if the right story was done, building off of Soundwave's origin here, Soundwave could carry his own miniseries.
Oh, absolutely. He totally could.
Oh my
It would be
God.
really cool to kind of go inside and see this whole thing play out, how, especially if it was just from his point of view, how he found, his footing with the cassette characters, how he had to, learn how to control his powers, how Ratbat comes and finds him because of his skill set and basically hires him to be one of his dudes. In a sense, like a mob boss basically hiring somebody that has a specific kind of skill set is what he was doing. And then how he slowly turns on his master. I mean, that pretty much is the flashbacks. I mean, we find out, like, backwards, but you find out that's what he was. He became Ratbat was the senator that found him. He could have been, no, I don't care, but he saw an opportunity to get himself out of a hole, and he took the job. But he was also not completely 100% on Ratbat's side either, which is why he was susceptible to Megatron and impressed by him when the first thing that Megatron did was, kind of point out, you realize that these other creatures that are with you are living, breathing, beings that deserve freedom as well. And he's like, of course I do. But he was impressed with that because most people wouldn't even have thought that, but Megatron did. So, and then of course, at that point, he conspires to basically kill the senators. And it was his idea, which I thought, oh my gosh, wow. It was like he was the Shockwave that was there before Shockwave was there. The whole, turn yourself in and they'll come to Kaon, and when they're here, we'll have all the Decepticons pounce on them and kill them. That was all his idea. And I just really, really liked that. I thought, that's cool that the guy that they tossed in the trash was the one that really usurped them. And it worked. And then he turns Ratbat, his master, into his own slave. Out of all of the cassettes, it was always a friendship thing, right? They became friends, and they had their loyalty given to Soundwave specifically because of how things started at the very beginning, except one, and that was Ratbat. Yeah, I liked that. Really, really liked that.
I love that. I know the IDW continuity doesn't have. Obviously, Rewind's a separate thing, and Blaster, to my knowledge, doesn't have cassettes, but I would love for them to do a miniseries with just the cassettes.
Yeah.
Blasters cassettes versus Soundwaves cassettes. Even if it was just a 2-issue miniseries, like just something really fun, that would be amazing if they did that. I don't think they ever will, but that would be awesome. So let's see here. So we get almost to the end here. The Titan arrives and kind of rises. We get... So we go back to Astrotrain and Blitzwing. What happened? I saw the pursuit of information without limit and found it wanting. A lesson I had learned long ago. Okay. Enough of this. Did you stop him? Well, that answers that. And... yeah, super giant Soundwave. What I don't get about the designs, and I'm not trying to nitpick this at all, but like Laserbeak has the disc thing, yet Buzzsaw has more of a bird/pterodactyl wing. I don't dislike it, but I thought I'd point it out.
Yeah.
And then we get to the really cool part, the flashback, and how I can't see Soundwave with a face. I just can't.
Yeah,
I don't
really
dislike
young
this.
Soundwave. It was.
Yeah, I don't dislike this. I believe this is Livio's art, right?
Yes.
In the past.
All
okay,
the past
so
stuff is Livio stuff. Yes.
is Livio, yeah. I don't dislike Soundwave actually having like a face of Mirage or a face of Blue Streak, or I don't dislike this, but it's too weird. I'm used to him having the faceplate, or I'm used to him having, in the case of Prime Soundwave, no face at all.
Yeah.
Because Soundwave is not a ordinary Decepticon. He's not an ordinary Transformer, and I think that's what the story proves. He is very extraordinary.
Yes. And
I just think giving him like a younger version of him, just giving him an actual mouth and nose, and
yeah, it did seem kind of odd. I guess I accepted it a little bit more just because it is such a young Soundwave. It's a Soundwave that's incredibly vulnerable, and like I said, he's in the dumps because he's completely overwhelmed and can't even function as a normal Cybertronian because of his abilities. So I kind of looked at it and went, okay, well, for him to take on a faceplate and to become the character that he's about to become because of the support and whatnot that he's had, and learning to control and hone his abilities, it's like he becomes who he is. This is like the version of him before he actually becomes that really awesome dude that he becomes. So I kind of looked at it as like, oh, he's almost made in the image of Cybertronians, but when he becomes who he is, he's made himself into the image of who he really is. You know what I mean?
Right.
So for me, I accepted it in the fact that it's like he looks like he's supposed to, like every other Cybertronian, but he's going to become Soundwave. And when he does, that's when he becomes the familiar character that we all know and enjoy. So I guess I accepted it on that just because I was like, okay, he's supposed to look like a Cybertronian. So, but by getting the faceplate, he changes.
Yeah, he really doesn't look like. He just looks like a nondescript Cybertronian, because you get this last page where Ravage tells him to focus and tells him to focus on anything. Or anything you can. This last page, and you get Laserbeak and Buzzsaw, and like I can't even see his chest isn't even. It's kind of like animated Soundwave, where every time Sari played the music or every time she used her key on it, it would grow and become what we want it to be. I mean, I like it. I think it's interesting. I just Soundwave having a face is just...
It's breaking your brain, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just like, Optimus Prime taking the faceplate off and having one as well. At first, it broke my brain as well.
He doesn't have I know there's this big debate online about Transformers having noses and all this and all that and everything else.
Why have hands? Why have anything? Why do they look humanoid?
Really. Yeah. So I know there's this big debate about, whether Transformers should have noses or not. And honestly, when Transformers Prime Optimus took his faceplate off and he has no nose, it just makes his mouth look even stranger.
Yeah, it does.
Overall, Transformers Robots in Disguise from IDW Publishing, Volume 5, amazing stories.
Yeah, I mean, coming back and reading them really kind of... I don't remember there being incredibly... I remember what was going on in More Than Meets the Eye, because that had some stuff going on. But coming back and reading this and seeing how it fits now, knowing what we get in Dark Cybertron, it's really kind of brilliant to see how things are paying off, and just the mindset behind what John is trying to do as he's setting it up the way that he is. And to be honest, I think in a sense, Robots in Disguise is the more complicated situation, because he's not just dealing with characters and social structures. He's dealing with complete social, not just on a ship. He's dealing with different culture backgrounds and everything. The Decepticon, the way that Decepticons are, the way that the Autobots are, even the nails, how they're all getting together and meshing. I mean, the social structures, and I think this is something we talked about before, the social structures of the Autobots, we're getting to know them a little bit more, like how their social structure is set up. We're getting that with the Decepticons as well. And they're all groups that are completely, in a sense, they're trying to come together, but they're also staying separate. Where the nails are trying to get them to come together, they're still struggling to come together, and because of that, they're rejected and thrown out. And those structures are not breaking down as fast as say on the Lost Light, where they have a confined area of where they're supposed to be because they're traveling on a ship. And those that are Decepticons, as much as they kind of meet them with, not being able to be very trusting of them, those boundaries are blending and ending, basically. They are accepting, Cyclona's the Decepticon. They are accepting him as one of their own. And it'll be really interesting to see how that will be changing, and how that the challenges that will be involved with having Megatron and Ravage on the ship now. Because, they're more prominent, and would they be willing to break down these boundaries that the Autobots back on Cybertron have really struggled with? So it's really interesting to see. I mean, he's got all of these different groups kind of set up, and, even Optimus Prime, who's halfway across the galaxy, and he's finding a way to bring them all together in one volume. And, it just seems like a lot could be going wrong with it, but yet it works. I mean, going back and reading it again, I really appreciate it a whole lot more. Maybe it's just because I have it all in my hand right now, and I can see it all on the page.
You
and
can
I know
see the big picture,
picture now because of it.
Yeah. I mean, John has done amazing writing in this series. The art, even though I didn't like Verma's art, I liked it, but I didn't like it as much as I like Livio or Andrew. Yeah. But
and he's overall, not a regular yet. Either.
Yeah.
So throwing in one that we don't usually see all that much, especially since he's only done one other one. So.
No. Yeah. Overall, Volume 5, outside of the transformations, I'd probably give it a 4 out of 5 stars.
I think it's a fair assessment right there. Yeah.
And I know that's a little bit of a nitpick, but the whole point of the series, I mean, both of them, is that it has in big, blue and red letters, Transformers. We've got to be able to see the transformations a little bit. Not, it doesn't have to go into great detail, but a little bit. I love seeing the flashbacks with the Soundwave story and seeing that they don't just ignore the cassette mode, that they use it to their advantage in the writing, and John does that amazingly with the writing. Overall, it was a damn fine issue.
Oh yeah, this is as a whole, the volume is really really solid, and I would definitely give it a 4.5. I think it's definitely earned that. So yep. Gets us all ready for Dark Cybertron.
Yep. So, where can the people interact with you online, Miss LadyWreck?
They can find me on my Twitter at LadyWreck, and they can also find me over at the Underbase, where I kind of run and edit Transformers issue by issue review, page by page. We don't take 3 hours, though. At least most of the time we don't. But yeah, we're getting a little bit better about it.
If you included all the outtakes, I guarantee you each episode would be 3.5, 4 hours.
Maybe.
All right, coming up on the Pull Bag next week, you're going to get one episode, the Pull Bag After Dark discussion on. We're going to dish on digital and print comics. Which one do you prefer, digital or print, or do you prefer both? And then coming up in September, this is tentative as of right now, but I'm hoping to do Dark Cybertron in episode 86. Joe Reed and I will have the TMNT Utram Empire issues 1 through 3 in the Back Issue Classics episode. We've also got DC Universe versus Masters of the Universe issues 1 through 6. And potentially I'm going to have 2 giant-sized episodes. It'll be one podcast, but episode 89 and 90, they're going to be top 20 favorite comic series and top 20 favorite comic characters. And then the 4th week in September, episode 91 and 92, giant size, top 20 favorite comic writers and top 20 favorite comic artists. So that's what's coming up in September for the Pull Bag. Join us next week when we've got, where we're going to dish on digital and print. So make your great escape into comics, and we will see you later.
Woohoo!
Heavy is the head that wears the crown.
Get on with the ceremony. My fellow Decepticons, as your new leader, Who disrupts my coronation?
Coronation, Starscream? This is bad comedy.
Megatron? Is that you?
Here's a hint.
Just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, the GCRN's comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you are leaving the message for and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. Send us an email feedback at geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at GeekCastRadio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.
Wait, you're still here?
Of
It's over. Go home.
One thing I wanted to put in here, just real quick before you wrap up, you can find a way to throw it in there. I think it's interesting because we didn't hit on this, but a lot of talk on combiners. Megatron's whole motivation for asking Shockwave to help it was because he wanted combiner tech. I find it really interesting that they keep name dropping combiners. I mean, we had the combiners, but in the last volume and everything too. But especially now that we've had combiner wars announced, it just seems like at first when we had the spotlights, we started doing this whole Metro Titan kind of vibe, and it built up to something called Dark Cybertron, where they played a big role. And we've been getting that a little bit with combiners. So it'll be really interesting to see how much that he's kind of laid in groundwork for combiner wars. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that plays out. And it'll be really cool to see in a year as we look back to see how he did that, how John built that up, and then we got the payoff with that. So
I think that's the interesting thing about this whole thing with the combiners in volume 4 and 5. And then I'm trying to find the link. We just had the announcement of Combiner Wars, and what's interesting about the announcement is that it's going to be Transformers by itself, and then Windblade is becoming ongoing.
I did tweet about that, and Sarah kind of acted a little surprised about it. So I wonder if it might have been something that Newsarama kind of put in there as they interpreted that as the next ongoing. We'll see. I'm kind of a little reserved. I'm waiting for somebody to call me and say, no, it's actually not going to be an ongoing. But no one has said anything. So I'm going, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
Well, okay. If you don't want to take Newsarama's, let me see here.
Was there somebody else that did too?
Well, I'm trying to see if Transformers TFW 2005 has Transformers Combiner War. A new Transformers event, Transformers Combiner Wars, will start March 2015 from writers Margaret Scott and John Barber, artists Sarah Stone and Livia Ramondelli. It is an arms race of truly titanic proportions. This long-lost ancient artifact allows the Cybertronians to unite into more powerful, gigantic forms. Will Cybertron or the galaxy be able to withstand the onslaught? And find out with prologue and 5 issues running in Transformers number 39 to 41, and the new Transformers Windblade number 1 to 3, which will be packed in with select Transformers Generations toys. So I don't know what's going to happen here, because it seemed like when we got Windblade, we weren't sure, depending on popularity, if it was going to be an ongoing or if it's going to be a mini. Obviously, it ended up being a mini. And now they're saying we're only going to have 2 titles. We're going to have Transformers, straight title.
Yeah.
No RID, no MTMT, whatever, and Windblade. So what's going to happen to More Than Meets the Eye? Are they going to...
No, I think More Than Meets the Eye it's going to continue on its own thing. That's going to be it's not ending. That's definitely going to continue to run on its own. I think what's going to happen to Robots in Disguise, and I think this is something that we might have even talked about at the very beginning, because John became writer and then he became senior editor. And that's a lot of work to juggle. And Robots in Disguise, I mean, especially the more that I read it, I'm like, wow, brilliant that he's juggling so much and pulling it off. Maybe it would be good to kind of share writing responsibilities with another writer. And maybe that's what's working out. I don't know if Robots in Disguise... I think maybe Robots in Disguise is going to not necessarily end, but maybe for a while. I'm not sure. Maybe it will evolve and turn into just something. But I would guess that since Dark Cybertron came along, and I think they learned a few things when they did Dark Cybertron, because they took over More Than Meets the Eye and Robots in Disguise. They're not pulling story away from James. So he's going to continue on More Than Meets the Eye from what I understand. But
my real question about this is why why are they no longer calling it Robots in Disguise? Or is it just gonna? Are they just saying for these issue 39 to 41 or issue 39 to whenever? Is it just going to be Transformers Combiner Wars for this storyline? Or that's what I'm really worried about. I mean, that's what I'm really confused about is why are they taking away the Robots in Disguise title? Because we've had it this entire time.
Yeah. My guess is it just to, highlight Combiner Wars.
Mm-hmm.
That way it doesn't get confusing. Because I think in a sense, sometimes it was a little confusing. Like when I picked up Dark Cybertron on the digital, I got them. I didn't get them as a trade. I got them all individual issues. So half of them are showing up in one place, and half of them are showing up in another place, and they're not together. And it's kind of frustrating because I'm like, okay, now I've got to bounce around between the two. And I remember even when I was talking with people, they're like, what one is it this time? It's Dark Cybertron Volume 5, but what one is that? Is it Robots in Disguise 20-something, or is it More Than Meets the Eye 20-something? And it was kind of hard to keep track. And maybe they just learned a few things out of doing that. They decided to make it less complicated and just call it something straight that way. I'm not going to say at this point that Robots in Disguise is ending, because I don't think it is. Maybe it's just evolving for a little while, and maybe they will go back to that when it isn't, when it's relevant to go back to that and make sense. That means that it's possible that their issue order will be off, but that's okay. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see.
Yeah, we will see. All right, we will catch you later, folks.
Rocking and rolling with Savage Ravage.